Kia ora, Helen Brums here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1831. No two persons ever read the same book. And that's a quote by Edmund Wilson. Hang on, I think that was the right one. Yes, that's the right one. My thing cuts it off a little bit. And for some reason, all my pieces are missing. Wow, look at that. Let's put that one back up there. Let's get this one going. I just did not realize that my bits were all missing. And where did my logo go? Oh, there it is. There we go. Now I feel normal. I think they did an update on the software over the weekend or something because, well, yesterday everything was fine. Today we're in different places. But anyway, welcome to the podcast. So, how I found this quote was because I actually found somebody had written a thing on Facebook. I'd done a meme on Facebook, and I cannot remember where I saw the meme. I just know I copied it and I've posted it into the Love to Read book club. And it said, I will never cease to be amazed by books. Seriously, just think about it. Thousands of people read the same book, but in each one's mind, the characters look different and the settings change, and we're all reading the same thing, but it's unique to each of us. That's insanely cool. And that was by the Bookish Elf. They're the ones that created that meme. And it got me thinking about things. And so I went into a little bit of research and I stumbled across the quote that by Edmund Wilson, that no two persons ever read the same book. And it got me thinking about it. And it's true. Nobody reads it. Yes, we can all sit there and we can all read The Housemaid, but everybody that reads it's going to have a different opinion about this book. We're going to interpret things differently. We're going to look at the characters in different ways. Yes, they'll have physical descriptions, but in our mind, that physical description is going to look different to what somebody else pictures in their mind. And I can give you a beautiful example of this. So on Facebook, there is a book that's called Jana de Leon's Instigators. And that is for the people that read her books, specifically the Misfortune mystery series. There's 27 books in the series, and I will tell you, it is a very lively group. I'm in there like daily, and there's like multiple posts per day. And I have to tell you, these other readers are absolutely hilarious. They do the most funniest of posts. But one of the things that they all started doing was saying, "Hey, this is who if these books were made into a movie, this is who I see playing Fortune. This is who I see playing Carter. This is who I see playing Ida Bell. This is who I see playing Gertie." Everybody's different. That we've got so many different nominations for who will play Fortune, Carter, Ida Bell, Gertie, Walter, Nicole, all these different characters that are within these books, that it's just sort of like, yeah, I can see each of those people, each of those actors portraying those characters. And I'm like thinking, so what does it look like in my mind? And then I have to go back to the physical descriptions of each of these characters to see, do I line up with any of these, and do I agree with any of these, or do I have somebody completely different? And in some of them I agree, and in some of them I have somebody completely different. So even just by having the same description, people say, when I'm reading about, they read the first book, Louisiana Longshot. They read that first book where it's got the physical descriptions in there of Fortune, and it's sort of like they suddenly have this mental image in their head of who that person looks like. Mine doesn't look like anybody famous. It doesn't look like any celebrity. And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, yeah, I can see that person playing that. Yeah, I can see that one playing that part. I can see that. And I've got like about, out of all of the ones that come up, I've probably got like about 10 to 15 of them that I actually agree. Those 15 people would actually make really good fortunes. Fortune readings is the name of the character. And so it's interesting reading, how people can perceive things differently. But then you have to look at it. It comes from, that's what's missing, is my moving background is missing too. But then it comes from, suddenly I've gone frozen on the screen. Hopefully you can still hear the voice going. Anyway, let's keep going. Sometimes it can come from life experiences. How you see something is put through your filters from your life experiences. All the things that you have experienced in life up to that point when you start reading that book are going to come into play. Or the jobs that, professions that you've had, or the experiences with travel that you've had. They're all going to, every single moment in your life that's created that you are today is going to come into play when reading books, because you're going to be putting everything through these filters of experiences that you have. Some of the experiences you're going to be able to relate to, like, oh, yes, I remember, and some of them bring up memories, like, I remember the time that I did blah, 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 blah. And it might take you down memory lane. And this is why I love reading novels, because there's going to be some experiences you come in there and you go, oh, I remember the time that, blah, 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 and off you go and you're off down memory lane. Go jot those memories down. Because, when you're discussing the books, you could turn and say, well, when I read this piece, it reminded me of a time when blah, 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 blah. Now, and I'll also give you another, with nonfiction books as well. I had a friend, and her and I read our way through Think and Grow Rich. We did a chapter a week. We met once a week, and we were working on a chapter a week. And we would sit there and go backwards and forwards with things in the chapter that stood out to each of us and what it meant to us. But the really cool part is that there'd be times it's sort of like, hang on, I don't remember reading that in the book. And we were reading the same edition, the same edition of Think and Grow Rich, because there's a lot of those editions. And we were reading the same edition. And so I go, what page that's on? So she'll go and look on her thing and say, tell me what page it's on. I'll go to that page, and she goes, it's right there where it says blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, oh, I totally missed it. No, I totally missed that. Yet I probably read it, but it didn't register with me because I wasn't ready to hear that information. I wasn't ready to receive that information, or it's information I'd received in the past and it no longer applied. So there could be different ways. So it was very interesting. And she would do the same back. Where did you read that? I don't recall reading that. Where did you read that? And so we would go backwards and forwards like this. And she goes, oh, that's an interesting perspective on things. So even just two people reading the exact same book, the same edition, can come up with different interpretations of things, because it's going through that filter of what life experiences have we had up to this point when we were reading it. Now, some people turn around and go, well, I only ever read a book once. And my thing is like, why? Now, I will admit there are some books that once I read it, I'm like, well, I'm glad I read that. I'm glad that book's over. I'm not going to read it again. Yet years later, I may go back and read it again, because now I'm at a different point in life where maybe that book will make sense to me this time around. There are books that I have read multiple times, and every time I have read them, I've picked up something new. I'm looking at it through different lenses. It even could be a mystery or a thriller, or just general fiction or anything else. But because it's been so long since I last read it, I may not remember the ending of it, or I might remember the ending and I'm like, well, how the heck did they get to there? Or there's been times when I have been reading something or doing something, and it reminds me of something I have read in a novel. And I'm like, oh, which book was that in? So now I have to figure out, when did I read that book? And I go back in my memory. I'm going like, when did I recall reading that book? What was the name of that book? And it will bug me until I get that book. And then, of course, I get to that book and I'm like, and then all of a sudden in my brain, I will get this image of reading this passage in the book and what was going on in my imagination at the time. And I'm like, oh, yes. And then in my imagination, I'm trying to turn the book over so I can see the cover. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so I finally see the cover of it and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that book now. But how did they get to that point? Like, you remember the beginning of it, you remember the end of it, but you don't remember how that particular situation came around. Time to go read the book again. So there are times that I have read some books multiple times. There's sometimes I've read a book once and that's it. I'm done with that book. I probably don't want to read it again, but who knows, in the future, I may go back and read it again, simply because I'll be looking at it with different lenses. So everybody, when you pick up a book, even if it is the same book that everybody else has written this is what I love about book clubs, is that you're all reading the same book that month. Like this month, we're reading The Housemaid. We're going to be discussing it on September the 7th. And everybody that comes into that discussion is going to have a different perspective, different thoughts about the book, about the characters. Some people will be more on be looking more at the description of things. Some will be looking more at the script of things. Some will be analyzing it a little different. Everybody's going to have a different perspective on things. And this is what I love about book clubs, is that everybody is unique in how they approach the book. You could be approaching the book from the fact that you could be connecting with the different characters based on your own life experiences. And we've already talked about that you could be doing it that way. And there are times that there are little pieces that the author may leave out, like in a physical description of a person. Like, they may tell you how tall they are, how their body shape is, their hair color, their eye color. But there'll be little gaps there, and you might just fill in the blanks. Like, they say curvy. Well, how curvy is curvy? Is curvy overweight curvy? Is curvy within weight range? And you fill in the blanks based on what you then go and read and about how this person moves around and things like that. And then you can fill in those blanks. And so again, everybody has a different perspective on things. It could be, how you perceive the characters or the plot twists or themes, how they vary. It could be that you're looking at, I will give you another good example of this. So there is a Facebook group that I think it's just called Jack Reacher. And it's a book series by Lee Childs. There's, I think, like 20-something or 30-something books in the series of Jack Reacher. Really good books. Absolutely enjoyed the books. Love the books. I've been back and read some, and I've been through the whole lot like 2 or 3 times. They then had a movie come out, which was called Jack Reacher, and it starred Tom Cruise. Now, there was a big hoo-ha in the group about the fact that Tom Cruise was playing Jack Reacher, because the book describes Jack Reacher as somebody who is 6'5", weighing between 210 to 250 pounds, and having a 50-inch chest. And in one book, they describe his hands the size of a dinner plate. Now, think about this when you look back at Tom Cruise. He is 5'7", 5'8", somewhere around there. He's a short guy compared to this character, Jack Reacher, 6'5", 220 pounds. And you got Tom Cruise at, was it 5'7", 5'8", somewhere around there. And no way does he weigh that. But as Lee Childs puts it, is that he had that description of Jack Reacher because he wanted somebody who would who not only had a physical presence, so that when you're reading the book, you got the idea that this was somebody that you just don't mess with. And so he wanted somebody who had a presence, and he thought Tom Cruise was good because he has a presence when he is on screen, which when you look at a lot of Tom Cruise movies, he does have a presence. His personality comes through, his persona comes through, it all comes through, and he has this presence. But there was a lot of disconnect in all of the Jack Reacher readers who all they were picturing in their head was a 6'5", 220-pound guy with hands the size of dinner plates, a 50-inch chest. And there was something about his abs looked like cobblestone roadways or something like that. They get very descriptive on him. In the different books, you learn something else about his physical description. And so they had this huge disconnect, and there was a huge uproar. Well, then Amazon Prime came along, and they did an original series just called Reacher. And they have this guy, Alan Richson, who's come in there. He's 6'3", but he's not 6'5". He's only a couple of inches shorter, but that's okay because his physical appearance fits the description of what the character is in the books. And all these Reacher people are like, oh, yes, totally agree. Yes. They were like, yay, love him, blah, 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 blah. And so they were praising just because the physical appearance matched what was in the books in a lot of people's minds. So that's one way that you can look at things when they take it from a book onto screen. Do they transfer across those characters as they're described in the book, or do they go in a completely different direction? So there's another thing that you can look. That's another way that you can look at things. What else can we look at on here? When you're reading, your emotional state. What emotions are you at the time when you're reading? Now, there's been some books when I have picked them up, and one of them was called To Live. It's by C.G. Cooper. He is an incredible author. He is a former Marine officer. He has this whole series called Corp Justice, but he went and what he does, and this is just like, that's why I love this author. What he does around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, he wants nobody to be alone. So he has a team of volunteers who will call his readers on Thanksgiving Day or on Christmas Day and have a conversation with them, just to let them know that, especially if you're celebrating Christmas Day or Thanksgiving by yourself, you can get put on, you can volunteer to go on the list to be called, or you can volunteer to go on the list to be the caller. And back in Christmas 2017, he had a variety of conversations with people that led him to writing the book To Live. And To Live is accumulation of these conversations that he had. He said the book literally wrote itself from these conversations he had with people on Christmas Day, with some of his readers, about what was happening in their lives and things like that. And the fact that, he was calling them to say, hey, and just having a conversation with them just to say that, hey, we care. We don't want you being alone, blah, 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 blah. And the book's called To Live. And it's about this guy who is about to retire. And the day he retires, he finds out that he has cancer. Not only that, within the first chapter, his wife passes away. But she makes him promise that he's going to that he will go out there and that he's not to give up, he's to live. Now, she doesn't know about his cancer diagnosis at the time when she passes. But she wants him to make sure that he goes and keep, with the drive to live. And then it goes about how he goes into this depression and everything else. And then all these different events happen. He befriends this the 16-year-old girl who becomes like a granddaughter to him. And it takes you on this journey. It is a beautiful story, extremely well written, something completely different to what he had written up until that point. And I will tell you that book, fortunately, I had it on my Kindle, and I actually wanted to pick up the Kindle at times and toss it across the room because it hits so close to home, because it came out in August of 2018, 10 months after Brad had passed. No, sorry, 11 months after Brad had passed, because he went in September of 2017. So this book came out in August of 2018, and it hit very, very close to home for me, emotional wise and everything else. And Brad made me promise before he departed this world that I was going to keep moving forward, following dreams and goals and everything else that we had discussed up until the point he passed away. That I was just going to keep moving forward. This book hit home very, very close. So my emotional state was tied up in this book. Now, there are some other people who didn't have that emotional connection to this book, but still thought it was a really good 5-star read. I actually put on Amazon that it is for me, it was a 5-star read, but I will tell you this, no novel up until that point and since then has ever affected me the way that this novel did, because it hit me so close to home. Have I gone back and read it again? Yes. Did I have the same emotional reaction to it? No. I had a completely different reaction to it the second time I read it. I've only read it twice. But it just depends, what emotional state are you in? Where are you at in your life? What's going on in your life at the time when you sit down to read a particular book is also going to affect how you read a book. It could be that that you're reading the book from, some people are reading a book for pleasure and some are reading it for analysis or academic purposes. So you've got the casual reader who may focus on the plots and the characters, and then you've got the critic or the scholar who may delve into the themes, the symbolisms, the structure, all of that sort of stuff. Remember back to high school when you had to read books for English and stuff, and the things that, what's the theme of this book? What's this character like? What do you think about this character? And you start having to analyze all these different parts of the book and saying, this is a great book. I enjoyed it. I only read 2, maybe 3 of the books that were assigned to me in English. And we did 3 books a year in English in high school. So I was at high school for 4 and a bit years at high school. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 4 and a bit years at high school. So in that time I read 13. Well, I did 13 book reports. How many of those books did I actually read? 2, maybe 3. I read The Outsiders. What was the other one I read? The Outsiders was really good. I read half of, what was the name of that one? Jack Nicholson was in the movie. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Macbeth was the other one that I read, the play Macbeth. And we also got to see the movie of it too. That was really cool. I think those are the only 3 that I ever read. And in their entire, To Kill a Mockingbird, I only read the first half of that. No, sorry, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I only read half of that. I read all of Macbeth. I read all of The Outsiders. And there was one other book that I can't remember the name of that I read fully as well. The other 10 books, I may have cracked the cover of them. I may not have, but I was able to turn all my book reports in and like I had read the book because I paid attention to all the discussions we had in class. And we never did any writing assignments on the book until after the book discussions. So I would pay attention to what everybody else said, and then I would form my own opinions based on what everybody else said. So it was my unique perspective, but it was based on everybody else's comments and their thoughts on the book. So yes, you can actually, I probably shouldn't have said all of that because there'll be some kids out there, oh, that's how you get through that? Yeah, right. We'll pay attention on that one. Now the teachers are going to go, okay, we're doing writing assignments first. But anyway, so you get those different perspectives. I mean, Day of the Triffids, I just read the back cover of that. I didn't even read the first sentence in that book. I never read a word of that book. I just listened to the discussions going. It was a sci-fi book about plants that eat people. I'm like, and I was 15 when we read that one. Lord of the Flies, read the Dust Jacket on that one too. Didn't crack the book. But it had some very lively discussions in the class. What else was one of the other ones that I didn't read? Oh, I can't remember now. But there was, we're talking 13 different books, and out of them I only read 3. Macbeth, I absolutely loved it. I used to know the whole first act of Macbeth with the 3 witches doing their thing with the cauldron. I used to be able to recite that off. Couldn't do it now if my life depended on it. But, so everybody brings a different perspective when they read the book. It can be the same book, the exact same edition, but everybody in that room will have different perspectives on it. And it's all based on what experiences have you had in life, because there'll be some characters you connect with because they seem to speak to you, because they may be similar to, have been through similar experiences that you've been through in life. It could be that maybe it's something that you're wanting out of life and this character has that. It could be a dream that you're going after or a goal that you're going after, and this character is already at that point in time that you want to be at. So it could be you connecting that way. It could be that you connect with them emotionally because you understand what they're going through. It could be, so there's a lot of different books that you can read with lots of different emotions that will come out of it. So I'm excited for September the 7th when we get to discuss The Housemaid, because I want to see what other people's thoughts and ideas are about that book. I'm forming my own opinions on them. I've got my own notes that I'm taking. And so it's going to be interesting to get there and just see what other people, what they get out of those stories, get out of that book. We're all reading the same book. So it'll be interesting to see everybody's perspectives and things like that. So come join us in the Love to Read book group. Just scan the QR code up there in the top corner, and you'll be able to, it'll take you to Facebook, to the page. Yes, there are some questions you have to answer in order to be admitted. Please answer those questions, because if you don't answer the questions, you don't get in the group. It's as simple as that. We're making everybody, even relatives of mine who wanted to join the group, have gone back to them and says, okay, I need you to answer these questions. Like I've sent them a Facebook message. We can't let you in the group until you answer these questions. Once you answer those questions, I'll let you in the group. So just go and answer the questions. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, that's it from us for today. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow